First, though, I want to discuss a very interesting local story that came across my radar yesterday afternoon. A pub in St Albans has gone viral for the message written on its blackboard sign, which proclaims that it's dog-friendly and yet child-free. A man called Kyle posted the picture on the social media site X, formerly known as Twitter, of the sign outside the Lower Red Lion pub in St Albans. And it's been viewed, wait for it, nearly 75 million times. And it's prompted a huge debate as to whether it's acceptable for pubs to ban children. 08081 008800, that's the number for your call. David Worcester is the landlord of the Lower Red Lion on Fishbowl Street in St Albans. Hello, David.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. So how long have you had this policy in place for?
It's a very old story. It's been, in this pub, it's been at least 11 years, and it was for 10 years in the pub that I had previous.
Yes, I have had a pint in your pub many a time and brought my dog in, so I've seen that sign many times for myself, which is why I was quite surprised that this has become a massive story. Are you surprised?
I was surprised it went quite as far as it did. It's hit the States.
Right, so you've had reaction from people in America as well?
I think the majority of it has come from the States, to be fair.
OK. Why have you got this policy? Why do you not want children coming into your pub?
There has to be a certain amount of choice in the pubs that we have in St Albans. I'm in a fortunate position where I am able to provide that service. And somebody's got to do it, I guess.
But is there something about children that you feel is not conducive to a good pub experience?
Absolutely not. I have no objection to any children in any other pubs, ever.
You just don't want them in yours?
I don't want them in mine. I said in the St Albans Times, I enjoy a game of pool, but I don't really want a pool table in here either.
Right, okay. But of course, pubs are finding it, as we know, very difficult to survive. The pub experience is, unfortunately, an experience that fewer and fewer people seem to be enjoying, which is a great shame for those of us that do enjoy going to the pub. And I know life is very difficult for those of you trying to make your business work. Would it not be easier if you did welcome families?
Easier in one sense, I guess, yes. Easier in a lot of senses, no. It's good to have a diversity of pubs, I think. It's good. It would be very boring if all the pubs were exactly the same inside and out. All the toilets were upstairs, all the toilets, the bar had the same array of beers. There was only 3 different lagers that you could choose from. The same furnishings. Why should it be any different for any other pub to do what it wants to do and attract its own clientele, to set out its stall?
And your customers, I presume, enjoy the fact that they're coming into an adults-only environment? I
presume that's why they come here. Yes, it's my USP. I think every pub should have one, and a lot of pubs in St Albans have their own USP. We work very well together. We're all supportive of each other's pubs. We have a very close-knit publican community in St Albans, and we all admire what everybody else is doing.
I think what's rather interesting, because I know of other pubs in Beds, Herts and Bucks that are also child-free pubs.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily advertise the fact on a blackboard outside the front door. Do you think that's what's made the difference here? I
had several complainants a while ago that there wasn't enough, it wasn't obvious enough out the front. So by the time they'd pushed their prams through the door into what is essentially a 2-bar, very small, traditional 17th century house, it became confrontational, and it was quite embarrassing for the people that then had to reverse their buggies out of the front door and back onto the street. I was told in no uncertain terms a while ago that I should advertise it more freely, so I did.
Right. I mean,
but that was a good 6 or 7 years ago.
Yes, and I think your sign has actually softened a little bit recently, because didn't your sign used to say, your 4-legged friends are welcome, but your children are not?
No, that's not true.
I thought...
the only thing I've done on my sign since the complainants made it clear to me that I should advertise more freely is I've subsequently added the directions and distances to the closest pubs to me that they should go. So the Fighting Cocks, 0.4 miles, the Six Bells, 0.3 miles, the Verulam Arms and the Farriers Arms, 0.2 miles, and the Portland Arms, 0.2 miles as well. So I point them in the direction of pubs that actually welcome children.
Right. So have you had, since the blackboard has been outside the front door, and since you're, as far as you're concerned, hopefully preventing embarrassing moments where people try to come in with their children, have you still had people take issue with your stance or not?
Occasionally, people come in and ask if it's true that they've got their child with them, and I think they think that they don't. The sign doesn't apply to them, but obviously it does, and they go. We get occasional bad reviews on various social platforms, right? But it's our USP.
But there are some children. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, David, and I don't have children, so I'm not someone who would be personally affected by this, really. But there are some really nicely behaved children, aren't there? There are some little monsters as well out there that are a nightmare, and you definitely wouldn't want them in a pub. But there are some children that are very nicely behaved, and they know how to behave in a pub. So is it not unfair on them and their parents that they're not allowed in?
We've got upwards of 40 pubs in St Albans, all of which are child-friendly, most of which are dog-friendly. I'm the only person, I believe, that has a pub in the area that isn't. There are a lot of my clients don't have children themselves. They're either childless by their own decision, or they're not able to have children, and they want to come to a place where it's adult-friendly. I'm not running a strip joint. I'm not advocating the use of drugs. Everything is strictly just adult-friendly, social, nice. You've been here, you know what it's like. It's real ale orientated. It's nice food orientated. It's sit down, have a nice chat, a little bit of background music in one bar, but not in the other. Yeah. A lovely garden out the back where you can come and sit in the garden. The garden's been child-free since COVID as well, and since the rule of six, and since children became an issue for a lot of pubs nationally. A lot of pubs went child-free during that period. They just chose to revert back to allowing children into the garden or allowing children back in the pub when social distancing didn't become such an issue. I just chose to keep it because that's what my customers wanted.
Right. So what's the problem with children in the garden?
In most gardens, not at all. I just want to create an environment where my customers can sit and relax. It only takes one child to kick off, and it spoils it for absolutely everybody.
Right. But then, I mean, some adults can be unpleasant, can't they? I mean, we've all been in a pub where you've got Mr. or Mrs. Loudmouth.
Yeah, they're easily controllable.
Are they?
Sarcasm does the trick. You can't really. Sarcasm doesn't work on a prepubescent child.
Right. Do you ever have any of your regular customers who say to you, "Look, David, we've got some family coming over. We'd love to bring them to the local pub. I know you don't welcome children, but is there any chance, our nephew or our niece is really well behaved. We'll make sure that you don't hear a peep out of them. Would you mind if they came in?" Do you ever get people trying that?
They're very understanding when I say no, because they know that when that I wouldn't want to do it, they wouldn't want me to do that for anybody else.
Right.
I have a very good local clientele, and they're very understanding. They're very appreciative of the fact that I don't allow children. But as I said, it's my USP. Here, a lot of pubs have their own USPs. I don't show sports, for argument's sake. Does that mean I'm anti-adult male? Because I'm allegedly misogynistic, because I don't want children. If I don't want children, I'm allegedly alienating the women. That's a bit sexist in itself, because what about single fathers? It makes it sound like there's only women that actually rear children. It's a bit of an anomaly, really. 75 million views. Off my front door.
Is absolutely astonishing.
Yeah.
I mean, that is beyond viral. That's kind of worldwide, international, stratospheric, really, isn't it?
It's a small storm in a teacup, though. Surely they'll be talking about something else tomorrow.
Well, I don't know. I mean, do you see this as being good publicity, or have you had a lot of criticism?
The support has been overwhelming, as it was when the vegans started attacking me about 6 years ago. That's a completely different story. Support has been absolutely overwhelming. I've had emails, I've had text messages, I've had keep doing what you're doing. I'm a parent of 3. I don't want to be surrounded by other people's children when I go out for an evening. All that sort of style of you keep being you was one of them, you know.
Right.
People have been very supportive. People that I know as customers but don't particularly know by name. People that I see every day, every week, and total strangers just saying, I've never been to your pub. There's a lad in yesterday, he'd got the train, he's 22 years old, a member of Camera. He saw it go viral. He got the train from Wolverhampton. He had to go via Euston because the Abbey Flyer wasn't running at some point. He went into London. He came back out. He spent an hour in the Old Fighting Cocks because he'd heard it was the oldest pub in England, which he enjoyed. And then he came here. He spent 3 or 4 hours in here, sat in the garden, had 3 or 4 pints and a rum, I think. And then he got back on the train, thanked me very much for my hospitality, and went back up to Wolverhampton. So at the very least, I've got a sale of 5 pints and a run out of it. But there have been so many more people just saying, I haven't been to see you for ages. I'd forgotten that you were child-free. You're fallen off my radar. I'll be coming to see you soon. It's been overwhelmingly supportive.
Well, I'm going to see what my listeners think and how supportive they are. And I want to thank you very much indeed for your time. And I know I'll just conclude by saying I've been to your pub. Yep. I don't have children. Yep. I do have a dog. My dog and myself, we were both made very welcome, and I had a lovely pint. So, thank you very much indeed. And thanks for your time today, David.
You're very welcome. I was hoping to have led on to a slightly different subject that was slightly more important in the reform of business rates and how much pubs are struggling because one of my critics was that I didn't deserve to be a successful business. And I know that there are a lot of pubs that are not in such a fortunate position at the moment. Is there any chance at some point we can have a chat as a board director of St Albans pubs about that and get on your show and maybe talk about that in the future, please?
Well, yeah, quite. I mean, you're very welcome to make the point if you want now. I mean, is it in terms of the struggle then for pubs, you feel as if things aren't made easy enough across the board? Well,
a lot of pubs are struggling. Not all of them are struggling, but all pubs are suffering. All pubs would like to be a little bit busier than they are, I believe. VAT on hospitality is ridiculously expensive at the moment. It's 20%, which I think should be halved to at least 10%. 5% on the continent, I believe, at the moment. 40% of your pint goes in tax to the Chancellor. He's very aware of the flawed business rates at the moment, which is why he's giving us all 75% off. But it seems repentant in his lack of duty to actually look at it, review it and change it. When 1 in 12 people in this country work in hospitality, 86% of these are in restaurants, pubs or hotels. It seems like we really need to be addressing the real fact rather than the storm in a teacup, that is whether or not a child can come into a pub in the back street in St Albans and actually address the struggle that all pubs in St Albans and all hospitality is facing at the moment. It just seems a little bit weird.
Don't forget, though, David, this kind of publicity may well be extremely beneficial to you. And I'm sure many of my listeners who love the idea of going to a pub with absolutely no chance of any children being in there, maybe they'll all be racing to come to the Lower Red Lion in Fishbowl Street in St Albans now as a result of this conversation. Thank you very much indeed for your time. David Worcester is the landlord of the Lower Red Lion. Well, what do you think? Is it acceptable for a pub to ban children? Yes or no? Jackie's in Letchworth. Hello, Jackie.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, Jackie. Do you think it's acceptable?
I think it's completely acceptable. I'm a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 5. I love going out with my family and my grandchildren. We find pubs and restaurants that have a play area in that are suitable, that there are other children in. And then if I want to go out in the evening and I want to get dressed up and go out with my grown-up friends, I go to restaurants and pubs that are a little more peaceful, a little more appropriate for adults. People need to stop finding ridiculous things to complain about. Not everybody is going to do things the way we want them. Find the right place for you and your family. I don't know why people have to complain about everything now.
I think possibly the reason it doesn't sit very well with some people is that when you're in the pub business, in the restaurant business, in the hotel business, when you're ultimately in the hospitality industry, then from time to time you have to deal with people that you wouldn't necessarily ordinarily want to socialise with. They are your customers, and you have to be welcoming of people, whether you like them or not, in all kinds of regards. And yet, with pubs, it would appear there is this ability for landlords and landladies to be quite choosy about who they will and will not let in. And I think probably some people who have children are just thinking, well, what an odd stance from someone in the hospitality industry to not be very hospitable towards a certain group of society. Is that not reasonable for them to have that concern?
They can have that concern, but then they can go somewhere else. People forget you start up your business and you create that business as you want it to be, to market a particular area that you feel you can best cater for. But I think it just goes back to people think they can have everything their own way, and that is just not life. I think they need to stop stamping their feet, find somewhere that is appropriate for them and their family, and that welcomes it. And if there's nothing in your area, maybe get together with others and create somewhere.
And do you think the blackboard outside the front door is a good idea or not? Is it likely to be antagonistic?
So for those people that want to stamp their feet and walk their own way, it's going to be antagonistic, but that's not the patrons they want. But for other people in a car with their children in the back, they'll see the sign and keep driving. That's not the place for those.
OK. All right, Jackie, thank you very much indeed. Anthony's in Shefford. Hello, Anthony.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. Do you think it's acceptable for a pub to ban children?
Totally acceptable, yes. As you may remember, I had a pub. I retired in 2019. I wouldn't like dogs or children in.
Oh. What's wrong? Hang on a minute. What's wrong with dogs in a pub?
Well, the dogs aren't always very well behaved. They argue with other dogs. And also I had a very, very big garden and land, so there was plenty of room for them outside.
Right.
So, we discussed this before. But children, yes, generally dogs are actually better behaved than children anyway. So let the dogs in and not the children. But I think it's a very good idea. I think I'm in full agreement with the gentleman. I've never been to St Albans, so I'll certainly drop into his pub if I'm ever there.
Oh, right. So this has made you more likely to make the visit, has it, to go and have a pint there?
Yes. Oh, yes, very much so, yes. But there is one other thing. Now, I might be wrong on this, but as I understand it, as the law is at the moment, children aren't allowed in pubs anyway unless they're having a meal.
I don't think that's quite right. I know children aren't allowed at the bar. So a child, it's completely against the law for a child to sit at the bar or for a parent to kind of allow a child to sit on a bar stool or anything like that. But as long as they are sitting down at a table with their parents, then I don't think there's a law against children going into pubs.
Yeah, but sitting at a table then. They're not allowed to wander around the premises.
Well, I don't know. I don't think they have to be eating, though. I think children can be allowed in without eating.
We'll have to check on that because I know it was a law that was greatly ignored.
Well, it used to be the law. It used to be the law because I know as a child myself, I mean, the number of times that we would go to a pub and my brother and I would be sitting out in the car and have a Coke and a packet of crisps brought out to us and, you know, parents would be inside the pub. I mean, that was just quite normal. But I think things have changed now.
Yeah, well, you were lucky. I didn't even get the Coke or the crisps.
You just had to sit out in the cold. We'll continue taking some of your reaction to this in the next half hour. Is there anyone that does have an issue with this and you think, well, do you know what? I'd just be honest with you. This doesn't sit very well with me, the thought of children not being allowed in a pub. Do you feel as if it goes against the spirit of hospitality? Or do you think pubs are, as David was suggesting earlier, they are all individual places with an individual style and an individual USP. And if one particular landlord or landlady decides for whatever reason that they don't want children in there or they don't want dogs in there, it's absolutely up to them. 08081 008800.